The Transformers film franchise is the Call of Duty of movies. It's something that has been, against all kind of common sense, wildly successful at the box office in terms of money, even though the reception to them has gotten progressively worse and worse as time has passed on. The domestic box office numbers have been dropping pretty substantially ever since the third one, and in spite of all that, the franchise keeps pushing on, and it will keep pushing on well into the future. I probably should say I'm not a fan of the Transformers. I've tried to get into them through the comics and the TV shows. I've even watched a fair few of them, like Prime and the animated series, and they were fine, I guess, but I don't know. I just don't find the Transformers that interesting. Maybe it's because I'm not overtly a fan of robots or cars, so when you put these two things together, you just get another thing that I don't care about that's a combination of two other things I don't particularly care about. But The Last Night is kind of an interesting movie for me. It might be one of those movies that I'm probably gonna like the more I think about it, but I don't know if it's actually good or if it just does the right things in a time where a lot of the wrong things are being done in Hollywood. And kind of what I mean is, I'm gonna go back once again to the MCU, and this movie actually does something that I feel like the MCU consistently keeps fucking up with, and it's reached critical mass with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. See, what the MCU does a lot of the time is that it expects you to get really invested in its story and its characters and what it's saying through that story and characters, and it does that usually really successfully, but then always at the absolute worst possible moment, they put in these stupid jokes or gags, whether they're verbal or non-verbal, in scenes that are supposed to be like the heights of like dramatic satisfaction, scenes that are supposed to heighten the tension. They just keep putting these fucking gags in the worst possible scenes, and that's not a problem of humor. The problem with that is it's really kind of like spiteful humor, where it's, this dude is called Doctor Strange, isn't that stupid? It's really self-deprecating humor where that goes against the kind of like the whole antithesis of what the drama is supposed to be, because the drama is written as, you know, being serious, as wanting you to genuinely get invested in a dude called Doctor Strange, and then the humor is always, look how fucking stupid this dude is, like he has a moving cape, how stupid is that, and how stupid are you for liking this guy? And it always runs counter to what I feel like is the main sensibility of the movie. And like I said, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, this has reached critical mass, where every fucking scene in that movie has something that points out how stupid the Guardians of the Galaxy are, and how you should feel stupid for getting ever invested in them, besides, you know, to take the piss out of them. But The Last Night doesn't do that. The Last Night is very much sincere, no matter when it's being kind of like dramatic or taking the piss out of itself. And I actually would say that Marvel, if they watch this movie, I feel like they could actually figure out when it is appropriate to put in scenes where you're taking the piss out of yourself, and to kind of like how to combine that with the drama. And there is like an overall note of sincerity throughout the entire movie. Like, this is why I can never really hate Michael Bay, because despite his many deficiencies as a director, and many of them are very much on the showcase here, there is a genuine element of sincerity about the way this guy's making movies. He's like a 15-year-old boy who's given all this money to like make big dumb action movies, and he like knows the words fucking shit, but he doesn't use them in that spiteful way a lot of us in real life and in movies tend to use them as, but more just, hey, this dude said fuck, isn't that funny? And the way he places the dudes who say fuck is legitimately funny. So it's a really hard thing to describe, but there is an overall note of sincerity throughout the whole thing. Every scene feels pretty much sincere. I would even say that Michael Bay actually showcases some pretty damn good directing in this movie. Like, there are some scenes, just dramatic scenes that are wholly satisfying and really get you into the movie. Bay also knows which characters take the piss out of and which not to. Optimus Prime's story is easily the most dramatic one of them all, and Bay never has a moment where you just take the piss out of him. There's no moment where Optimus Prime makes a big speech about, uniting with humanity and fighting to save the world, and then he steps on dog shit or Grimlock shit, and then everyone is like, look at this dude, he stepped in shit, isn't Disney lame. The movie never does that. The movie knows kind of like who are the characters you should have deal with dramatic sincerity and who are the guys that can kind of take the piss out of themselves. And I feel like no other character in the movie does that better than Anthony Hopkins. I love him in this movie just because he's doing that thing that Ben Kingsley does in Iron Man 3. Because both Anthony Hopkins and Ben Kingsley are dudes who get typecast in very specific roles over and over and over again. With both of them in Iron Man 3 and in The Last Knight, you can genuinely feel that these guys are so happy that they can just kind of like play a role you would expect them to and then just take the piss out of it. It's glorious stuff. I haven't had this much fun watching an old dude just kind of be a mad dog since, I guess, Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith. Like, Ben Kingsley does some, good stuff in Iron Man 3, but I feel like Hopkins, I feel like he could be a match for Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith in terms of just psychotic, insane old dudes who are just a blast to watch on the big screen. And I also want to say the movie does actually some things fairly effective, like I said, on the drama. Optimus Prime's story, it's not handled particularly great, but the sincerity of kind of like the acting around it and the way it kind of like pays off at the end of the movie, it kind of makes it work. It's kind of like this movie kind of does that thing where the script is kind of a mess, but the people doing the script are delivering it with such, I don't know, like sincerity, like they actually believe in everything they're saying and doing in the movie, no matter how kind of ridiculous it might be, that it's kind of hard not to find the whole thing charming on a certain level. What I also want to talk about is this movie does another thing that I find kind of refreshing. It's that the script is messy. There are quite a few scenes where I'm like, why is this here? Or why did you put this here? Or this feels like it could have been done in a whole other movie. It's a messy script. Like, it is blatantly messy. Like, this is one of the most obviously messy scripts I've seen in a long, long time. But it doesn't come from the fact that Paramount wants to make like a Transformers cinematic universe. Like, these are problems that come from just a messy script. And so this is kind of what I was talking about at the beginning of the movie, where The Last Knight does have quite a few issues, but these are issues that come naturally from filmmaking, or rather messy filmmaking, like a messy script, certain things not getting the proper development that they deserve, certain things being underdeveloped that could have been a lot better and probably could have made the movie overall like legitimately, even pretty good, I would say. But these are things that come from just a messy, creative process. These aren't the problems that we keep finding in Hollywood. This isn't The Mummy, where The Mummy is so much about setting up an entire cinematic universe that it's fucking everything over completely, and it has nothing to compensate for it. It's just a horrendously boring movie. Whereas The Last Knight is a movie that is insanely flawed and downright broken in several respects, but it's broken because of genuine filmmaking problems, not because it's trying to set up a big, sprawling cinematic universe. I would even go so far as to say that this movie has made me want to see what the franchise is going to do next. And I kind of even want to go back and watch the fourth movie, because this movie is apparently a really big continuation from 4. I feel like if I saw 4 before I watched this one, I would probably like it even more, because there's a dramatic payoff to stuff from 4, I want to say. And so a lot of people are going to think that me talking about like dramatic payoff in a Transformers Michael Bay movie is insane. But like I said, the people involved in this movie, from the director to the actors and even, to the script, they are in a kind of like a big mess, but it's a mess that's delivered with enough sincerity and with enough good action, more importantly, to where you can get invested in it. And the only truly like horrendous problem with the movie is that it's too fucking long. This movie did not need to be 2.5 hours. In fact, my theater did some bullshit. They had a 15-minute pause in the middle of the movie for no good reason. The last time they did this was when the second to last Harry Potter movie came out, and they had a pause in the middle of 15 minutes, like a 15-minute break in the middle of the movie. And so it turned a movie that's already 2.5 hours into basically 3 hours. So that was horrendously insane. And these movies did not need to be this long. There are several things that if you cut them out of the movie and you just kind of rework the scenes a little bit, I feel like you could cut this movie down to 2 hours hours or even less so, and I feel like you could pretty much get the gist of everything that there is, because, like I said, this movie has a very messy script. There are, several scenes where you're just gonna be like, I get what you're trying to do here, but I feel like you maybe should have taken another crack at this. But, in spite of all these issues with the script being kind of a mess and certain developments not being as good as I'd want them to be, because this movie actually does set up quite a few interesting things for like Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, it doesn't entirely succeed in them. But the ending does set up a lot of interesting things for the franchise going forward. And I feel like if these movies I don't dislike Michael Bay, and so I kind of feel bad just saying this, but I feel like if you're gonna set this franchise up as like a big competitor to like the comic book movies that are reigning supreme these days, Bay probably should bow out respectfully. I feel like he's probably delivered the best movie he can to his ability when it comes to this one, when it comes to the Transformers. I feel like if you got another director, not only is that gonna excite people where it's gonna be like, okay, we finally have some fresh blood in this franchise, and if you got a really good director involved in the movies, I feel like you could legitimately do interesting things with this franchise. And I want them to do that stuff because this movie leaves the characters off and the world off in a place where I want to see them really play around with the concepts. And even the Bumblebee spinoff, I'm excited to see that because some of the things they imply about Bumblebee are really fucking cool, and I want to see how the Bumblebee spinoff could deal with that stuff. It's kind of like if you had like this nice old man who's like your English teacher. He's really nice, he's really unassuming, you probably think he never heard a fly, and then you figure out he's James Bond. Like, that's what they set up for Bumblebee in this movie, and it's pretty fucking cool, and I want to see them do it right. I feel like the time has come for this franchise to probably do things right. They have been promising to do it right with like 4 and then 5, and then they've not really succeeded in that, but I feel like you have really good setups for shit moving forward. It's probably time to capitalize on that and do it good, and I want them to do good. We've done, we've done 5 big dumb action films, but if you want to keep the series going, you want to revitalize this series and make it like a big, powerhouse franchise that's more than just kind of dumb selection of action flicks, you probably should just, bite the bullet and start maybe investing more time into like making them actually good movies instead of bad but really entertaining for a lot of different reasons kind of movies. So yeah, that's kind of my review for The Last Knight. I did not expect to like this movie. I thought this movie was gonna fucking kill me when I saw the runtime for it, and it is horrendously long, and it did really need to get another, draft of the script done to just cut a lot of ancillary bullshit out of it. But like I said, everything in the movie is delivered with a great sincerity. The moments that should feel dramatically impactful, they feel like it. The scenes that are meant to take the piss out of the movie are really, really hilarious. It even manages to do quite a few cliche things that should just make me cringe for just being in the movie, do it in a way that's, once again, either really kind of cool or really hilarious. So, yeah. I don't know if this is like the best Transformers movies. I think the first Transformers movie is legitimately good film. And even the people who hate the overall franchise will readily admit that the first one is at the very least decent, if not, downright good. But I feel like this one could be like a contender for that role. That's probably like saying he's gonna be the strongest kid in 3rd grade, but fuck it. I had fun with this movie for a lot of different reasons. I feel like this movie is kind of like an example of some things other studios could legitimately learn stuff from, and I hope they do, because this is kind of like the dying breed of movie. A movie that's just kind of messy out of a messy creative process or a bad creative process, instead of, hey, look guys, we have 10 fucking movies in our movie factory lineup, get excited.